All right, good evening. We are just days away from the 2022 midterms here, with the races and the rhetoric heating up, especially in the battleground states, where the outcome is crucial to control the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. Arizona, of course, is one of those states which could sway the balance of power in Washington, D.C. And joining us today is Republican from Arizona in the U.S. Senate race, Blake Masters. Great to have you with us, Blake.
Great to be here. Thank you, John.
Now, before we begin, we should note that Newsmax made several attempts to invite the Democratic candidate, Mark Kelly, to debate with Blake Masters, and also offered an individual town hall, but the Kelly campaign did not accept our offers.
Gosh, I wonder why you didn't do that.
Well, so with that, we have invited the Arizona voters here to ask questions about which issues they are concerned about leading up to Election Day. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. Welcome, Blake. Great to talk to you. Great to see you again.
You too.
Of course, since the debate last time we saw each other. And let's start with President Obama's recent visit to Arizona. And he said, quote, "Democracy may not survive if Republicans are elected in Arizona." Do you agree with that assessment?
What a ridiculous statement, right? I mean, the Democrats, they think that voters are a danger to democracy. Apparently, well, they're about to get a dose of democracy next Tuesday when we have a red sweep in Arizona. And how funny is it that they had to trot out Obama, right? They had to dust him off and drag him out of retirement to come and try to invigorate Katie Hobbs and Mark Kelly's floundering campaigns. I think Obama's presence here, they almost filled up a high school gymnasium, by the way. Right? When Trump comes to rally with me and Kerry and Abe and the statewide team, man, we have these rallies in wide open fields, and it's just Arizonans as far as the eye can see. So props to the Democrats for almost filling up a high school gym. But Obama's presence here, really, it was just a distraction for who wasn't here, right? Joe Biden. Where's Joe Biden? Why didn't he come rally? They sent him off to states the Democrats can't possibly win, like Florida, so that he can feel busy doing something, right? They're trying to put distance between themselves and Joe Biden, even though Mark Kelly and Joe Biden, they're joined at the hip. He's a rubber stamp vote for Biden's agenda. So I think it's a giant distraction. They don't want to talk about the wide open border or double-digit inflation or rising crime. So they talk about abstractions like defending democracy. I think voters see right through it.
Arizona is the home state of Senator Barry Goldwater, the godfather of the conservative movement. And since that time, though, Arizona has become more purple. You know, you're running against a Democrat incumbent. The other senator in Arizona is a Democrat as well. Are you too conservative to win in Arizona?
Nope, and we're going to find that out on Tuesday, right? People say it's a purple state, and it's really not. I think it's a center-right state. It's a state full of amazing, commonsensical people. You know, when I grew up here, I'm actually from here. Mark Kelly's from New Jersey. He's in the New Jersey Hall of Fame. Did you know that? Whatever that is. No. But I actually grew up in Arizona. I know it really well. And it was always John McCain and John Kyle, right? Those Senate seats were ruby red. You never had to really think about it. So, yeah, the state's changed somewhat. But it turns out, look at what the Democrats in charge have done, right? They've opened our border. We've got fentanyl, illegal immigration, crime. They've ruined our economy. They surrendered our energy independence. They've caused this massive inflation. Most people, whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, don't like that. And so when voters look around, do they want more of what they've seen in the last 20 months? No, they want to vote for a change. And if you vote for me, if you vote for Kari Lake, Abe Hamadeh, well, you're going to get safe streets, good schools, you're going to get a secure border, and you're going to get a healthy economy where you can afford to actually raise a family again.
Well, since Mark Kelly couldn't be here, we had to pull a clip from his campaign commercial. We want to play that for you, get your reaction. Let's take a look.
At its heart, a campaign should be about listening to people, listening and really hearing them. And when Mark Kelly launched his campaign 2 years ago, he made a point of doing that. In every county, in big cities, in small towns, on tribal lands, and everywhere in between across Arizona. And while that campaign is over, he's just getting started.
So Mark Kelly talks about listening to Arizonans, listening to Democrats and Republicans. Does he actually listen to Republicans and Democrats?
No, he doesn't show up at all. The first time, the only time I've ever seen Mark Kelly in person was during our debate, before our debate, right? I got to meet him for the first time. This guy does the Joe Biden 2020 hide in a basement strategy, right? He carpet bombs the airwaves. He's got a lot of money with junk like that. Did he actually say anything? No. Again, they talk in abstractions, cliches. Oh, we got to listen to Arizona. No, I'm actually listening to Arizonans, and what they're telling me is, Blake, please get in there and secure the border, right? Please get our energy independence back.
Is that what you hear the most, the border? Is that what you hear the most about?
It's the border, and it's this crushing inflation, right? And how astonishing is it that here in Arizona we bear the brunt of these twin crises the Democrats have caused, right? Inflation's bad nationwide. I don't want to minimize everyone else's suffering, but we have it worst here in Maricopa County, 13.1% inflation, literally the worst in the country, right? Now, I know Joe Biden and Mark Kelly, with their open borders policies, they've turned every county in Arizona, every county in America into a border county. But we feel the brunt of that pain here in Arizona. It's just lawlessness, right? Lawlessness at our southern border. The Mexican drug cartels, basically Mark Kelly and Joe Biden's business partners at this point, they're in charge of the border. And it's really, really sad. I'm tired of meeting, I love meeting voters on the campaign trail, but one story that I'm getting tired of hearing is, oh, I just lost my son. I just lost my daughter to fentanyl, right? That's what I'm hearing from Arizonans. They just want this poison out of our communities. They want a secure border. They want safe streets. They want to fund the police. They don't want to defund the police, right? And maybe if Mark Kelly actually spent time here and talked to people, he might understand that. He might stop voting as a rubber stamp for Joe Biden's agenda.
Yeah, safe streets used to not be a controversial thing. Somehow it's controversial now. But let's talk a little bit more about the border. You just got back from the border. You were down there with Abe Hamadeh, who's running for Attorney General, and Kerry Lake, who's running for governor. The current governor, Doug Ducey, has been placing these shipping containers there on the border. What would you do to deal with the immigration crisis? And should we be talking more about fentanyl as a country?
We absolutely should. You know, Mark Kelly's been silent on fentanyl for 20 months. Get this, until just a few days ago. He finally releases some legislation, the Stop Fentanyl Act of 2022 or whatever. How disgusting is that? He didn't do anything during his whole term, nothing. He wouldn't even talk about this issue. While 100,000 Americans are dying, poisoned to death. We lost 2,000 people in Arizona in the last 12 months to this poison. He couldn't be bothered to lift a finger. And then he reads his polls 1 week before an election. Uh-oh, Blake's right on my heels. And he finally decides, hey, maybe it's time to pretend to care about fentanyl. It's like, sorry, Mark, that's too little too late. I've suggested Mark Kelly should attend the funerals of some of these children in Arizona who are dying from this poison. I think that might give him a greater understanding of the consequences for his open borders votes, right? So this shouldn't be partisan. You can't have a country if you don't have a secure border. But unfortunately, it is partisan today. We know what we need to do. You finish the wall, right? You double the size of Border Patrol. I'm a tech guy. I want technology, drones, advanced thermal imaging cameras. I want every inch of that border mapped out so we can understand where the cartel is trafficking people and drugs. But we also just need to re-implement the policies that we had 2 years ago. It's not rocket science, right? The way it's supposed to work is when an illegal alien tries to break into our country. Hey, nothing personal, but you're not allowed to do that. You want to come here, you got to come legally. So we're going to apprehend you. We're going to turn you over to ICE, and you're going to be deported. You're going to go back to your home country, or if that's not safe, to a different country that wants you. That's what federal law requires. Biden and Mark Kelly, they're willfully violating federal law. They've helped the drug cartel traffic more than 4.5 million human beings into this country in the last 21 months. It's complete chaos, and I'm tired of it.
The numbers are astounding. Now, shutting down the government is one of the things that you've talked about doing in order to achieve the border security that you would like to see. Now, in the past, government shutdowns haven't always gone well for Republicans. The government shutdowns bring pain that everybody feels, of course. Aren't you afraid that a shutdown might be spun again by Democrats as Republicans just trying to hurt the nation? They would be the ones held responsible for it. Does that concern you at all?
They'll lie. They'll try to spin it. They'll try to blame us. But you know what? We have to dig our heels in. We have to hold Biden accountable. The Democrats are usually pretty good at this messaging, right? What they do is they show up and they say, hey, Republicans, John, sign this horrible pork-laden compromise piece of legislation. And if you Republicans don't, well, we'll shut the government down and blame you. And Republican leadership, to be honest, usually just caves, right? Well, it's disgusting, but we can use that tactic against them. So I'm going to say to Biden, hey, you're not getting a single thing from me, not even a single piece of funding, not even a vote on a continuing resolution, no appointees, right? We're not even going to hold a vote unless and until you secure that border, finish the wall, re-implement Remain in Mexico, right? And I'll try to whip the votes in the Republican caucus as best I can. Who knows, if we actually do that and threaten to grind Biden's presidency to a halt, we might actually get some border security. And if we don't, right, if Biden just refuses because he's so obsessed with open borders, let him close down the government if he wants to keep the border open that bad. Let him try to sell that to the American people, because I'll be on your show. I'll be on Tucker Carlson. I'll go on Joe Rogan and expose Joe Biden's obsession with open borders. I don't think the American people are going to like that.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about crime. Your website points out that the murder rates are up 87% in Tucson, 87% since 2019, up 50% in Phoenix, and you call it the Biden crime wave. But what can the federal government do to stop crime on a state level?
We can secure the border. You know, I know not every single criminal act in these statistics is perpetrated by an illegal alien, but A lot are, and even the ones that aren't, I think, are influenced by this culture of lawlessness that you get when you just don't enforce the law. Biden, I mean, he held up his hand, he put the other hand on a Bible, he swore to faithfully defend and execute the laws of the United States. Well, federal law says illegal immigration is illegal, right? You're supposed to try to keep illegals out of our country. He just surrendered. He's willfully not enforcing the law. It's a violation of his oath of office, of course. But what does the citizenry come to learn when they see the president is just ignoring the law? They learn that ignoring the law, or that you can get away with it, right?
Right.
They learn that you don't have to follow the law. And that's why this culture of criminality, this culture that the Democrats are pushing on us, defund the police, it's really taken root. It's getting in the water. We're building this society, unfortunately, where, hey, we're locking up toothpaste at Walgreens, but we're losing the will to lock up the people who try to steal the toothpaste. And that's the culture the Democrats are pushing on us. So I will be a vocal advocate for a pro-police culture. I'll do everything I can to secure the border. But there's also specific things. I think Josh Hawley ran a bill, Senator Hawley in Missouri, ran a bill to provide federal funding to put 100,000 more police officers on the streets in America. I think we could use some more police. Mark Kelly would disagree with that.
All right, I want to open this up to some questions from the audience, including one we have Gabby here from Tucson. She's right here at the microphone, would like to ask you a question. Go ahead, Gabby.
Hi. Speaking of Josh Hawley, do you think that you, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, do you think that you guys will be able to introduce a heartbeat bill and have that pass to finally stop the killing of babies at a national level?
Great question. So after Roe v. Wade was overruled by the Dobbs decision, which I think that was a great decision, the Dobbs thing, it sends the hard question of how to regulate abortion, especially early on, back to the state legislatures. So I'm pro-life. I'm proud to be pro-life. And we pick up the fight and take it to the state legislatures, right? Arizona's decided 15 weeks. And as a senator, I'll be voting on matters of federal law. I think Arizona's got the right to make its own law. Now, that said, even though I believe in states' rights, I also believe in a federal backstop. I've signed on to, or I will sign on to Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham's bill, 15 weeks at the federal level, right? Let state legislatures wrestle with that question. Texas is going to make a different decision than California, which is going to make a different decision than Arizona. But at a certain point, I think we draw the line. Most people want limits. I'm pro-life. That means we believe in limits. Mark Kelly believes in no limits at all, right? Mark Kelly literally sponsored a bill in the Senate that would have mandated legal abortion nationwide up until the moment a baby is due to be born. Right up until that first breath, Mark Kelly's okay with any abortion for any reason, then he wants you, the taxpayer, to pay for it. So that's disgusting. I think a 15-week federal limit, right? We can't let California allow Planned Parenthood to go in and sever spinal cords and dismember babies at 8 months and 30 days. 95% of Americans know that's ghastly, right? That's just wrong. So I stand up for life in the Senate. I will stand up for that 15-week limit that Senator Graham's proposed. I think that's just common sense.